So this week, a famous TV doctor was on the cover of a tabloid magazine claiming to have a diet that helps you lose 2 pounds every single day. And he didn't stop there. He went on to claim that it's better than gastric bypass surgery according to the cover. And it got me thinking of an interesting paper published a few years ago that looked at the science behind TV doctor claims. And this is relevant because everywhere you look, there's another TV doctor claiming to have the magic solution to your health problems.
I've got the #1 miracle in a bottle to burn your fat.
Some claim it's your thyroid, others claim it's leaky gut, which is quickly becoming a buzzword, and there's even a Canadian TV doctor selling a triple action colon cleanse that apparently shrinks your waistline. I mean, that sounds explosive. But with all seriousness, this is important because behind these claims are credentials like MD that earn your trust and make you want to pay for their solution. And mixed with medical credentials that we trust are fancy infographics on these television shows that after watching makes you think, well, maybe a triple action colon cleanse really is the solution to my waistline. So the question remains, can we really trust the information of TV doctors? And are their claims backed by science? Well, what should initially make you feel skeptical of their information is that after making a claim that they have a product to shrink your waistline that cleanses your colon, they finish it by saying, "This product is not approved by the FDA. It will not diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease." But they made a claim that it might shrink your waistline. They're contradicting themselves. Now back to this paper. It was called Televised Medical Talk Shows, What They Recommend and the Evidence Behind the Recommendations. So here's what they did. They had people, and I kind of feel sorry for them, watch 40 episodes of the Dr. Oz show and the doctors and find 80 strong recommendations from each show by the host or their guest. Now these weren't any recommendations, these were strong recommendations. So picture language like, "You must do this," or "You should really try this." That type of language. When they made one of those claims, they wrote it down. And then they had experienced evidence reviewers try to find science while doing a literature review behind those 80 claims for each show. Now, once they gathered their data, they put it into categories to see what the flavor of the claims were made in each show. Now, if you look at the Dr. Oz show, there's a strong flavor of diet and nutrition advice on his TV program, and you're probably not surprised to hear that. But what I found was surprising is compared to the doctors, Dr. Oz or his guests very rarely recommended that you consult your healthcare provider before making a health decision, which I actually think is an important part of making especially major health decisions in your life. So before we move on, I think that's an important take-home point for this video. If you're watching a TV program and somebody claims that you need to cleanse your colon, for example, to shrink your waistline, and you're not sure if that's a good life decision, talk to your healthcare provider. Speak to a regulated health professional that's undergone the training and is a content expert in that area, a registered dietitian, for example, or a physician, and ask them, somebody you trust that you have a longitudinal relationship with, and see what their opinion is regarding products like cleanses, and then make that decision. But I certainly wouldn't base it on a TV program alone. Okay, so what did the science actually show around those 80 strong recommendations for each show? For the Dr. Oz program, science only supported 46% of the claims, so less than half of what was claimed by himself or his guests was backed by any science. Now, science actually contradicted 15% of the claims, the opposite of what they were saying you should do. Now, they finished by saying for Dr. Oz, there was nothing to be found 39% of the time. Nothing, either supporting or contradicting the claims. They literally couldn't find it in the literature. Now, moving on to the TV show The Doctors, they actually fared a little bit better than the Dr. Oz show. So there was some science to support 63% of their claims, which is a little bit better than Dr. Oz's 46%. Now, science actually contradicted 14% of their claims, and they couldn't find anything to support or contradict their claims 24% of the time. So a little bit better than the Dr. Oz show, but still not awesome, again considering that these 80 claims were around strong language like "you must try this." Okay, so we need to transition and start talking about conflicts of interest. Whether it's a TV host or their guest, we know that a lot of people are involved in different businesses or have products for sale. For example, that triple action colon cleanse formula. And it's important to disclose your conflicts of interest when giving health advice, because the person you're talking to should know that it may potentially affect the advice you're giving or create some bias. Over the course of those, 80 total episodes they watched, 40 Dr. Oz, 40 Over the Doctors, the people in the study reviewed 924 claims in total. Now get this, only 4 times over 924 claims did the TV host or their guest disclose any conflict of interest, or 0.4% of the time. Now, I would presume that there is potentially a conflict of interest between the host or the guest more than 0.4% of the time. Again, a potential red flag when taking health advice from a TV doctor who's popular. So if you dig further into this paper, they come to what I think is a pretty reasonable conclusion based on the evidence that we've just reviewed together. And that's, people watching the show would be making health decisions solely based on a trust in the host themselves, rather than a balanced explanation of the potential harms, costs, or benefit of the decision they're about to make. And what they're getting at is you're simply trusting them because they're a TV doctor. And I think that's dangerous. And I think this is a wake-up call for physicians potentially watching this video as well, in that we should never take for granted the automatic trust that often comes along with being a physician or having the MD title. And this is a good example of that, and that there's not a lot of evidence to support these claims, and there's evidence to actually contradict those claims, and there's no conflicts of interest even being disclosed by a lot of these people, and yet viewers still trust. I think that's a big wake-up call for all of us. And in addition to being a wake-up call, I think it's also a reason to be highly skeptical of the health advice that we're consuming in general, whether it's on the internet or particularly on television if you're watching a TV host. And all of this also serves as a reminder of the Webster Dictionary definition of skepticism, which is the doctrine that true knowledge, or knowledge in a particular area, is uncertain. And especially around nutrition and lifestyle advice, where the science is murky at best in a lot of areas, be skeptical of somebody claiming to have a magic solution and using strong language like, you must try this triple action colon cleanse to shrink your waistline and gain mental clarity. Because there's a good chance there's no science to back it up. So be very skeptical of that type of language. So what are the take-home points around health claims and TV doctors in general? The first is to be critical of bold claims, magic solutions, and anecdotes. And what I mean by an anecdote is, for example, when Aunt Sally rubs essential oils on her son's feet, and she claims now that essential oils can cure the common cold. Well, that's not true, and that doesn't prove anything. Point number 2 is, if it sounds too good to be true, it likely is, and that seems almost oversimplified, but it's very easy to fall prey to flowery, motivating language, and all of a sudden you're taking a product not proven to work. Point number 3 is to beware of people who never disclose their conflicts of interest. For example, back to Aunt Sally, if she's making a lot of money selling essential oils and not telling you that, that's a big red flag. And the last point, and definitely not the least, is to not hesitate to ask people what their qualifications are. If you're claiming to cure my rheumatoid arthritis or my diabetes or obesity, what are your qualifications? Do you have any specific training or content expertise in that area? It's very important. Ultimately, this is about being a savvy consumer of health information. It's about being skeptical of bold claims, especially around products that may not be proven to work. And natural doesn't always mean safe. Your health matters. And if you're thinking of making a big health decision, speak to your healthcare provider. If you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe and also hit the notification bell so you get notified every time I post a new video.
3 weeks ago, I quote you, FBX literally flushes fat from your system. In January, you called Forskolin, quote, lightning in a bottle. I don't get why you need to say this stuff because you know it's not true.